Somebody came into my office and was trying to talk to me. Uh, so Matt and I talked today a little bit about our evergreen digest that we had, and just talked about a few things we can do to make it more useful for all of you. One thing we're going to do is start moving over local stories that can run for a while longer. So like when the budget's cleared out, if there's stuff in there that can still run, on Wednesday's budget, there was an ag outlook story for Minnesota. That can still run in any paper in the next few weeks. So we're going to move that over to the Evergreen Digest. I'm also going to contact some of you that do the wires directly and talk to you about this, but we're also going to start adding some feature stories, just evergreen feature stories on like, here's an activity to do with your kids and check out this health thing. And, just kind of evergreen features, filler stories that can be used, like for down page on the forms cover. They like to have like a TNS story about something, some of those kinds of things. So we're going to start working on that. Like I said, I'll be talking directly to a couple of you about working on pulling those. And with these changes, one thing Matt and I were talking about, and he and I kind of have different opinions on it. And so we were wondering what all of your opinions are. When we are working on pubs, if we take something from the pod digest, you all think that it would be helpful if we noted on the pod digest that we placed it. So, for example, if we take the Lost Italian and put that on, Dickinson C3 or whatever for their Wednesday paper, then we note next to like under the Lost Italian slug, like Dickinson 316. So we know that it already ran in that paper. So if you're going back a few days to look for more content, it's already noted on the budget that something ran. Or do you all think that would be too much to keep track of to make sure that you're noting that on things? Thoughts?
I think that it's kind of important to do because especially I work kind of between a couple different papers, and I almost placed a story twice that I honestly didn't know it was there. Thankfully, it didn't have room to run. But since I didn't start that part of the paper, I didn't know it was somewhere else. So I think it's kind of a good thing to keep track of, especially when you look at like the evergreen for like, and then the other papers pull them specifically and put them on their budget. They don't note anything about it, like some of those business stories.
Mm-hmm.
Almost placed some of those twice as well. So I think it's kind of important to know.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the pod digest, all the editors can see it. But the pod digest is mainly our tool. And so, if we want to run, or if we want to list, that this ran here, yeah, I'm all for it. We did have an instance this weekend, and another one of the issues that comes up too, and this was part of the discussion Alicia and I had, was this happened in Grand Forks last week, and I was involved with it, so it's on me. So I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here. But we ran. For some reason, they had an extra big outdoors book, and so we had run a couple of the gardening columns in the C book, in the outdoors book, but we didn't note that on the digest. So I came along on Friday doing live pages, and if the obits are short, what we do in Grand Forks is we'll run those gardening columns kind of behind the obits. And so we did that. So these gardening columns ended up in the B section and the C section that day. And so I guess it would have been easier if we would have noted onto the pod digest that, we use these in Grand Forks C3, whatever the date was. Yeah, hopefully that would have avoided me then running them twice. So I'm just not sure on how we're going to place it. I mean, and when I say police it, I mean, we're going to have to rely on all of you to, hey, I grabbed this, I used it, here's the date, time, or whatever date you used it on. Just, we're going to have to do that. So if we want to start doing that, I'm all for it.
I kind of agree with Lily. I spend some time looking back to see if they've run something when I need to fill a space. And that takes a lot of time. If I have the time, I do it. If I don't have the time, then I'll go in another direction and find something else. But there's a lot of times when I'd rather run that evergreen content. So if we had, a little notes field or something like that, I think that's going to take a lot less time to fill that out than it is going back and looking to see if they've run that evergreen content in the past week or whatever.
Okay, so everybody call up tomorrow's digest, the Thursday pod digest. And I'm just going to go under features here. And I would think that we would do it the same way we do with evergreen, right? I mean, you could just list, and I'm just going to throw this on here as a placeholder. I mean, we could just do something like that, right? Is that what we're talking about? Doing something like this?
Correct. Yeah, something like
that. And so that way we know that it's been used. And also it'll, a lot of the editors, the local editors, the Corey Wenzels and of the world, they grab this stuff on their own and put it under optional a lot of times on their own digest. So hopefully they would see that and go, oh, they've already used that in GFH3 whatever. And they're editors, so it's like herding cats, but maybe it'll prevent them from grabbing them in the first place. No, I'm all for it. If you guys want to do that, just if we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's be consistent and let's do it. Because there could be a tendency where some of you are doing it and others aren't. And then somebody comes along and, because some of you are front end of the week with the pubs and others are on the back end of the week with the pubs. And I would hate to miss it. So if we're going to do it, we'll have to bring up, those who aren't here right now, get them on board with it and start doing it. Now, are we thinking this is just for features or optional copy or all copy?
I think it would help for, especially if you have sports that they have a late, like especially for like Wilmer or Duluth. Like I noticed there have been times where I've done Wilmer sports late and someone else has done the early edition and they put an evergreen feature on there. So like if there's like a gopher feature or whatever, and I'll put it on in case we need filler, and then I'll be like, oh crap, we already ran that. So that I think that could be helpful for that type of thing too. Just for me anyway. I don't know what anyone else thinks about that, but
I like for news too, because like Jack does the e-edition for Duluth and then I do the print edition, and so sometimes he'll use something earlier in the week and then I will have no idea that it's been used already. So I like for news too.
Yeah. And I've been basically on the pod digest themselves. I generally try to keep like 2 days ahead. So, today being Wednesday, I've got Fridays already wiped out and the new Friday stuff listed. But I haven't done Saturday yet because I know that there's some papers that might want to look back on, this past Saturday's digest and say, oh, that story was there. Yeah, I could still use that or whatever. So I don't like to wipe it out too much. But yeah, no, I think if we want to try it, let's do it. And we can add those those notes, I guess. And the other thing, Alicia, I don't know if you were going to get into this, but I can get into it too. For those of you working on weeklies, if you look at the Evergreen Digest right now, we have news, we've got business. I've added that graphics component. We were thinking of also adding like best of the weeklies. And I say this because last week on Friday, I was trying to get copy. I was trying to get additional copy for Saturday or, for Sunday and Monday, basically. And boy, NPR and St. Paul were just bleh, bone dry. And everything that they had was, everything St. Paul had was just like hyper local. And so I was like, And of course, what I did is I ended up going back and looking at some of the weeklies. I think Perham had done mother-daughter veterinarian clinic, and I think Detroit Lakes had a hospice volunteers story. And so I ended up grabbing those and using them for like Monday filler for some of those papers for their Monday e-editions. Because a lot of times those papers who do have Monday e-editions are scrambling for copy. So I wanted to give more copy. So I got us thinking that maybe like it doesn't have to be shared on Brightspot. It doesn't have to be, I can make those decisions. But we were thinking like, especially for those of you who work with the weeklies, if they've got a good centerpiece that you think might have some legs with other people, list it on the Evergreen Digest, and we'll call it like best of the weeklies. And just throw it on there, and it would help me help you all find additional copy. And it's some of them can be, sometimes the weeklies are pretty with their features, but hey, in a pinch we'll run it. So anyway, that's another option. So maybe start listing at least a centerpiece from some of the weeklies onto the Evergreen Digest, and let's see what we get.
All right.
That's all I got.
So yeah, we'll just I want that Evergreen Digest to be someplace that's really useful for all of you, so that you can just go on there and find some stuff. And
and thank you. Some of you have been using the graphics, so.
Yep. Yeah, we got all those cool graphics too. Some of you may have noticed this, that the Health Fusion that I think came out today, it's about napping and how to take like a power nap. I've already mastered that, but we do have on that Evergreen Digest, there's a graphic about a poll about people sleeping and stuff like that. So, if you've got space alongside where you're putting that Health Fusion, you can throw in that graphic too. And any of the graphics can always go on any of our pages. So, and then one other thing that Matt and I were asked for last week when we met with the editors was a few separate Evergreen Digests to help editors with their special sections. So that would be content related to home content, ag content, bridal content, stuff for seniors, things like that, for like our different generations pieces that we do in the company. Nick Weiser, who oversees special sections for our company, is on vacation this week. And then I'll be gone Friday through all of next week, and then I'll be working half time the week after, and then I'll be back. I'm having surgery. But I'm going to communicate with Nick and work on putting those together. I think those are largely going to be handled by the special sections team. They'll be moving content over as they work on people's special sections. But once those are set up, I'll let you all know and make sure that you've all got links so that if as you are going through, if you're on the wire and you find a story that would work really well in our Generations magazine, or, here's a great story that is evergreen that could go in bridal sections about, I don't know, dress fashions or bridesmaid etiquette, or, you know, whatever, any of those things that you can be adding those to so that we can be grabbing content and just kind of stockpiling it for all these different kinds of occasions. So once that's set up, I'll make sure that you all have links to it. But just an FYI that that's something that we're working on as well. Does anybody have any questions on any of this? Concerns? All right. Yeah, we just want to work through all of this and figure it out. So it'll be a little bit of a process. Just, you know, keep giving us your feedback as we go along with things. So anybody have anything else just in general you'd like to say? Talk about how much you like Matt's hat for today.
Tragically hip. It's for the holiday. Just to let you know. I also got a cup for the Tragically Hip for St. Patrick's Day. As I said before, they could put the logo on anything, and I'll probably buy it. So, just a word to the wise. I'm going to ask that Lily and Emily stay after, so I can talk.
All right. Thank you all.